Good morning, everyone.
All right. Can you tag us on Facebook so we can stream live as well? Sorry about that. If you can. If not, it's okay.
See if you can get to my Facebook page. Oh no, let's see. Oh, strange things are happening. All righty. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Pat Phillips, and I am one of the founders of Parent Voice Box. And with me this morning, I have Rosalind Powell as well, my partner in putting together these forums for parents. We decided a while ago we wanted to give parents an opportunity to be able to learn more how they can become better advocates for their children. It's one thing to send your kids to school and to have them do all the coursework, but how do we help to elevate them, propel them into their greatness? And that's why we have created Parent Voice Box. And this morning, I'm so happy and delighted to have some wonderful friends with us who are going to share with you some valuable information that I wish I had when I was sending my kids off to college. And I'm going to introduce them one at a time. They are all very well talented and esteemed individuals. I don't even know who to begin with first, but I'm going to start with Dr. Ketsia Sadler, founder of College Cafe. College Cafe was founded by Dr. Ketsia Alerte Sadler as a source of information relevant to the financial aspects of the college application process and as a resource for families to obtain funding during college. After she and her husband, Kenneth, went through the process with their son, Andre, who went to Syracuse University, graduated in 2013, and Armand, who went to Cornell University and graduated in 2017. And in speaking with other parents, it became evident that families needed information in addition to what the school guidance counselors could provide. College Cafe's mission is to ensure that students and their families are empowered with the knowledge to make the college of their choice more affordable. Thus, no more, pay less is their motto. College Cafe provides individual consultations, group and community-based opportunities, and college road trips in order to meet students and parents' needs. Dr. Sadler, thank you so much for being here and bringing that wonderful knowledge and insight with you today. Also with us, we have the wonderful Rhona Vega, who is the CEO and founder of Parent Voice Box. And Parent Matterz. I'm sorry, Rhona. Parent Matterz was created out of love for Black and Brown children and a desire to continue her mother's legacy, a wonderful woman I had the pleasure of meeting myself. Rhona, the CEO and parent of Parent Matterz, was raised by her incredible, strong single mother, where she and her siblings were exposed to everything mom could find to keep them occupied, learning, exploring, and off the streets of New York City. Rhona has spent the last 35 years cultivating Parent Matterz while managing the education of her 5 children. Rather than keeping powerful and life-changing resources to herself, Rhona began using Parent Matterz as a vehicle to share resources and empower parents around the globe with educational tools and resources to help their own children find their passion and succeed. Rhona is a change agent, dynamic educator, motivational speaker, and success coach. Amen to that. I know that is true. I've witnessed it. And also we have the wonderful Khaliyah Legette. Am I pronouncing that right? Legette, who I've just had the pleasure of meeting. Teaneck High School graduate, Teaneck High School. And she is a current candidate for a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Virginia Darden School of Business. She is also a graduate of Georgetown University, where she received her bachelor's degree in American Studies and a minor in Education, Inquiry, and Justice. Khaliyah has also worked as a Deputy Special Director for State Senator Cory Booker. She is already very accomplished, and I so look forward to her very bright future. And we will also learn from her about how she was able to attend Georgetown for free and received a fellowship for her MBA. Outstanding what our young people have been able to accomplish. And so I welcome all of you this morning, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Sadler.
Good morning. It is a pleasure to be here. I think this is my 3rd time working with Parent Voice Box, the MAWP program, so I'm really excited about that. And then today it's a pleasure also to be with, I think, the yang to my yin, the yin to my yang, with college preparation with my line sister, Soror Rhona Vega, who is amazing. We met a few years ago, and we've been partnering together ever since. So I'm real excited. And Khaliyah, thank you so much for joining us today. So I have a simple little PowerPoint, but it's a tag team effort today. So you're going to hear from all three of us interjecting in this whole process because we want to help you families make your dreams a reality. So let me start sharing my screen. Zoom slideshow. Sorry, my thing is not. Hold on a second. Technological difficulties here. Okay, not sure why this isn't working, but so we're talking about making our dream. Can everyone see the screens?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. I'm not sure why it's not working for me, but
Did you
okay.
hit slideshow?
I did, and I don't know why it's not working.
Go to beginning, current slide. Go ahead.
Keeps going to the end. Let me try one more time. I'm not sure what I did.
While Ketsia is doing that, I just wanted to say congratulations to all the parents and students that are on this morning. You could have spent your Saturday morning, and it looks like a pretty beautiful day, a little chilly here in the Northeast, but doing anything. And so we applaud you for spending your time and being intentional about your child's success and information and exposure. So thank you and congratulations again for being here.
Thank you. I don't know why this is not working properly, but we're going to go from where we are. So when we're talking about making your dreams a reality, there's a lot of academic preparation that needs to be done. And what I always tell parents is that, and for students, focus on your area of strength. You know, what courses inspire you to get up and go to school in the morning? Are you an athlete? Are you a musician? What is it? And when you're looking at your academics, if there's areas that you're weak, then get tutoring for it. Not a problem. You need that help. And then also you want to take honors, AP, dual enrollment courses, summer programs. You want to prepare for the SAT and the ACT. If you're at private schools, you might want to take a program that has you might want to obtain your international baccalaureate diploma, which will allow you to get credits towards college. And then once you get accepted into school, some students can take the CLEP exams where you're getting credits for some of the introductory courses that students need to take. And then finally, you can attend a high school where you graduate with an associate's degree, which will allow you to have credits towards your ultimate four-year degree. So Khaliyah, you want to give us any tidbits on any of that we talked about?
Not at the moment. I think there are a few summer programs that are available in your local area. For example, I did one at a local college in New Jersey where I was able to get a few credits in science that I was able to apply to my degree. But there's so many opportunities out there, and I think it's just a matter of like doing your research and figuring out what works best for you and what fits into your schedule and what's available near you.
Okay. And I know
jump in, and just say thank you to both of you. Take a screenshot of this, parents and students, and check with your school, your guidance counselors, and they may say to you, hey, well, we don't actually know much about this or whatever. You have to push them because every high school really should have access to this information. And I know when my son was in high school, we had to really dig about those dual enrollment courses. So some schools make this information more available than others, but you definitely want to try to take advantage as much as you can. I actually didn't know much about the IB courses. Out of 5 children, my fifth child, who's a high school senior now, is the first one that's ever taken IB courses. So information is power, and so take a screenshot, talk to your guidance folks at your high school and your teachers, and try to find out more about this.
The importance of that, like we said, is that the credits you get will go towards your degree, which ultimately you might not have to spend as many years in college because you're coming in with credits. Like I know a young lady in Bergen County, there's a high school affiliated with Bergen Community where students graduated in May with their associate's degree and then in June got their high school diploma. So one young lady I know of started college as a first-year student, but yet she has 60 college credits. So she's halfway done with her degree. So that's an amazing thing to be able to do, because what it does is it gives you the chance to maybe only have to do another 2, maybe 3 years in school, and then you can then you can apply to graduate school if that's what your desire is. So the other part of making dreams a reality is that you will have to fill out financial aid forms. There's no way you're getting any type of scholarship. Well, some scholarships do, like some of the local ones are not asking for your financial status, but the colleges and high schools themselves, you have to fill out forms. And the first one is FAFSA. Every college and university in this country use them. And to some of the students out there who are maybe saying, you know what, I don't know if I want to go on to college. You may want to become a plumber, a hairdresser, a mechanic. That's okay, because those people who are doctors, lawyers, and engineers need someone to do their hair. They need someone to fix their car. And if the plumbing messes up in their house, they need someone to come fix it. So again, like I said before, what's your area of strength? Figure out what that is, and then apply to those schools. And like I said, FAFSA is a requirement at most of our trade schools, in addition to the 2- and 4-year colleges and universities. For the seniors in the audience, you want to file FAFSA as early as October 1st. So those of you in the audience, you should have already filled it out. And parents, don't be afraid of giving your tax information for FAFSA, because the initial loans coming out of FAFSA are only in the students' names. It's only if later on you're offered the Parent Plus loan. Those are the ones that are in your name. But initially, FAFSA, those loans in your students' names. I know my 2 children graduated with about 25,000 loans, and they paid that themselves. They took care of it. I didn't have to pay that for them. And then the CSS profile. Some of the private schools use that form. And the good thing about CSS is schools that use it have additional funding available. You would be amazed as to the alums who have a scholarship. So you might just get an additional $1,000, and that's beyond what you already were awarded in your financial aid package. Again, CSS profile is available right now. There's a fee to file it as opposed to FAFSA, which is free. But again, for the seniors, if you're applying to 3 schools that use it, later on, when you decide to attend the school, if that school will require CSS, so you won't have to pay as much as while you are a college high school senior. And then the schools also have their own school-specific applications, meaning if your parents have their own business, then they have to fill out that form. Don't be afraid of the forms, because the more information you give the school, the better picture they have of you to be able to give you that money. So any of my partners want to interject on the financial aspect?
Yeah, I definitely, thank you for this information and sharing all these links and dates. Yeah, FAFSA and CSS profile opened on October 1st. So if you haven't done this and your child's a senior, please do that this weekend. Make that a priority. Some schools also have a deadline. I also have a senior in high school. And so I had my kids, just so you know, because I'm all about training them and teaching them how to be independent, fill out their FAFSA and CSS profile. And then when they got to a point where they didn't have the information, if I was with them, then I would, get the information and give it to them, or they would text me and then I would share that information with them. So that's a really good habit to get your kids into. So, because they're gonna have to fill these forms out every year. And, a lot of times I hear people say stuff like, well, I'm not gonna get money anyway because of my income or whatever, that kind of thing. You still need to fill out the FAFSA, because sometimes scholarships also, but schools, that's a requirement. Do not fall into thinking that you can get away with not filling out the FAFSA. Do that. The CSS profile, I've heard parents say there's too much information. They're asking me too much information. That's actually better. I think, honestly, FAFSA doesn't really give you an opportunity to tell what your situation is, and maybe that you live in a place where it's high taxes, et cetera, or, a higher cost of living, but the CSS profile gets down to the nitty gritty and those questions. And it's really important that you do that. I know 3 of my daughter's schools were requiring the CSS profile. So we just finished that last weekend. So the other reason you want to fill out the CSS profile is there are some scholarships, and I know particularly here in TNEC, local scholarships that require it. So if you have it already out of the way, people want to see what's going on in order to give you money. So don't shy away from these forms. It's going to take a good half an hour to an hour to get it complete, but you can always pause, get the information and come back. But make sure you do this, and then include your children in this process, because they need to learn how to become independent and fill out forms anyway. I still make my kids fill out their forms even when we go to the doctor's office. So that's just my way of raising them and teaching them to be a little bit more independent. So, and if you need help, you can definitely reach out to Ketsia or myself for information and help. I've definitely helped folks fill these forms out if you need it.
And then one other thing with the CSS profile, FAFSA is just numbers. That's it. CSS profile, as Rhona said, gives a better picture. And the last question on CSS profile is a free text. So you can actually write in what your family situation is. So if you've been affected due to COVID, if a family member lost their job, sadly, if someone lost their life as a result, you can put that in there in CSS. You can't do that in FAFSA. So take advantage of the information, because sometimes some of the merit scholarships want to see that financial information. So give them the info. It's not a problem. You want something, so you got to give a little to get a little. The financial aid package, when it's awarded, as we said before, the schools will give you scholarships and grants that you don't have to pay back. But sometimes be careful, because if you start out at Princeton and you're not happy and you want to transfer to Harvard, you may not be able to transfer that money. So it's really important that you do your homework to visit schools and see, okay, is this really where I want to spend 4 years? Because packages are not always transferable from one school to the other. Loans, as we said, you have to pay back the loans. And then you've got federal loans, and then Parent Plus loans, which you really don't want, you have to take out. But the federal loans, as we said, some of them initially they are awarded to the students and not to the parents. And then work study, I put that in parentheses because it's not totally considered financial aid, but as a student, you can have a job on campus that will allow you to have a little bit of money in your pocket to buy a book, or if you want to travel back and forth home, things like that. Again, it's making you accountable with part of your academic pathway. Any ladies want to chime in on that? Nope, nothing. Okie dokie.
I don't know. I think we should definitely go back to that slide and hear from Khaliyah on this whole scholarship thing and share some of her experiences. I would love to hear a little bit about how you got into Georgetown and that experience, and share with the folks, because that was huge, right?
Yeah, it was definitely huge, and I wish I had a program like this when I was going through it, but I was involved in a lot of local organizations when I was in high school that did a lot of college prep, sometimes in less standard ways, like not through these like formal workshops, but I was able to learn more about certain scholarships, especially, with my school's guidance counselor and pushing and learning more about scholarships. I applied to a lot of local scholarships and won a lot through TNEC, which really helped me pay my way through college. I unfortunately didn't get a full ride to Georgetown, but because of FAFSA, I got a lot of it covered because it was based off of my family's financial situation. And so filling out FAFSA is so important, and made Georgetown much more affordable for me. One thing I will say though is that work study if you are granted work study, it will be included as part of the financial aid package. But that doesn't mean, as Dr. Sadler said, it doesn't mean that it has to go directly to the tuition, but it is spending money. So for example, I had work study for all 4 years, and I worked at my campus bookstore, which was a great decision because I was getting that money. But on top of that, because I worked there, I got a student discount to the bookstore, or a worker discount to the bookstore, and was able to get my books for a reduced price, which is another way that you can kind of like hack the system in a way, and get more money to make college much more affordable for you.
So that's definitely good to know. Discounts anywhere, those definitely work. So that's a good thing to know. Thank you for sharing that, Khaliyah. So some additional sources of aid. We've got the Posse Foundation. It's a program where students go through while they're in high school. And when you go onto your school, you're with the additional posse. There's about 9, I think there's usually about 10 students in this posse who go onto a school. That is good because sometimes you end up at schools where you might be the only person, you don't know anybody, but at least going with a group, you already have your support system there. QuestBridge is another program that is based on finances, and your guidance counselor and your parents can refer you to that program, and they are helpful. And as Khaliyah said, she was awarded lots of local scholarships from the area. There are some that are from our state. We've got national scholarships such as Ron Brown and Coca-Cola. The Ron Brown scholarship is still open right now. The deadline is sometime in January. And join us on Tuesday. We'll be talking to a student who was a recipient of the Ron Brown scholarship. The HBCU Connect is another website that has scholarships and also internship information. JLV Counseling as well has lots of scholarships. They're one of my go-to sites when I send out information about scholarships. JLV, I like it because from day one to the last day of that month, they have scholarships for undergraduates, graduate students, high school seniors, you name it. There is money out there. You have to put yourself in there. And don't be afraid of filling out scholarship applications. Khaliyah might be able to support the fact that sometimes if you write one essay, you can probably use it for another scholarship application. So recycle, work smarter, not harder. So you don't have to think that, oh my gosh, I have to do another scholarship essay. You might not. Some of them don't even ask for essays. Some of them just want to know what your interests were in school. Sometimes you might just have to shoot a video or take a picture of something. Make it easier for you to get that money. Parents in the audience right now, we're 529 accounts are other ways that when your children are younger, you can start putting money away to pull out or pull from when they go to college. Different companies have them. New Jersey has New Jersey Best Savings Plan. Any New Yorkers listening today, New York State also has a college savings plan. Parents, take advantage of those. And gifts from family, have family when it's your child's birthday or first communion or whichever, take that money, put it into that account. You know, they don't need all the additional clothing and all the stuff and toys that they get, because sometimes they get too much stuff and then you got a whole lot of stuff to clean. Make your life easier. Get that money, put the money away. To the athletes who might be listening, NCAA, you have to register on that. Junior year, if you want to play sports and get that money from Division I schools, you need to be registered on NCAA. And then another way, once you're already on campus at a living, you can become a resident assistant. You're there a few hours a week, staying in your room, taking care of the issues of the other students on your floor, but at least that forces you to be in your room studying for a certain number of hours. You might get interrupted, but at least you're in your room. And then for those students who decide, maybe I'm not going to go away my first year, I'm going to stay at home and commute or do online schooling, which was an issue, you know, for us back in COVID last year, get a job where they're offering tuition reimbursement, an additional way to help pay for that cost of school so it's not coming out of your family's pocket. Ladies, what do we want to say about those things? I know that was a mouthful.
So I just put in the chat, first of all, this is great information and I hope everybody is taking pictures or writing this information down, especially if you have students who are under, you know, like sophomores or freshmen. You need to start understanding what these scholarship requirements are as soon as possible, so you know what your child's resume and GPA and transcript will need to look like before they get to their senior year and start applying to colleges. That is really, that early planning is key. So it's never too early to start planning for college and for scholarships. So I would definitely suggest 9th grade, like you already have some lists and stuff going out there. I put in the chat Executive Leadership Council, because just as an example of, like, Khaliyah, my sons and my kids all applied for a lot of local scholarships and national scholarships. And, you know, Google Docs became, of course, our best friend, because you can save those documents and recycle them, those essays, and change them around. But the Executive Leadership Council, I remember, this is just one example of one of the scholarships, and this is once you get to college. that that encouraged my sons to apply to. And just talking about, like, you know, you hear words like, oh, people leave money on the table, or a lot of people don't apply. That is really true. I've actually seen that happen. This Executive Leadership Council was really strictly for HBCU students. Come to find out, one of my sons was not in a historically Black college, and he received a scholarship. And in the letter, it said, because he's at a predominantly white institution, it said, because of your stellar academic performance, et cetera, we made an exception and gave you this scholarship, which I thought was incredible. So I'm just saying that I tell my kids this all the time. They might have rules or guidelines, but apply anyway. Especially if it's about income and stuff like that. You'd be surprised how many people don't apply to scholarships. So if they're really basing it on a need base, don't let that fool you. Don't let that deter you from applying, because if enough people don't apply and maybe your need isn't as great as someone else, if they're not in line, then guess who's going to get the money? So definitely apply, and definitely keep Executive Leadership Council on your list of scholarships to apply for. It included not only a ton of money, it included a week long in DC. And Executive Leadership Council, just to look it up, is a organization of all the most Black CEOs around the country, around the world. So they give back, they mentor these young people, they help them throughout their career and on into, because the whole point is to get them into those C-suite positions. So that's just one of the programs that Parent Matterz actually supports and shares in our resources, but definitely apply for everything. Khaliyah, you should definitely chime in, because I know you applied for a lot of scholarships, and I think it would be nice for you to share what time it took and how, because a lot of people get overwhelmed, and how you were able to navigate that.
Yeah, definitely. It can feel overwhelming because there is so much out there, and it seems like it could be really time consuming. But as mentioned earlier, you can recycle a lot of essays. So 2 of your best friends might be Google Docs for your essays and an Excel sheet or Google Sheets to keep track of the scholarships that you're interested in, the deadlines, the link to the website, and any of the materials that you might need to submit it. And just keep looking at that on a weekly basis so that you're not letting time go by too fast and you're not scrambling at the last minute to like pull together some documents that you need for the scholarship. And this is also somewhere where, you know, parents and the children could have a good dynamic going on. So for example, my parents would send me scholarships that they found, and so that I would go ahead and apply to those. So, you know, even though I was still really busy with high school and working on classes and my extracurricular activities, they were able to take some of the time that they had that was free, search for some scholarships, send them to me via email. I could put that into my Excel sheet, and then I can go ahead and carry that forward. And also the scholarship application process can go throughout all of the senior year of high school. So don't think that if you forget to apply or you don't haven't applied to anything by like December, the chances are just completely gone. But just keep looking. There might be different types of scholarships that show up later on. But also just like, don't be afraid to search, do Google searches, find scholarships, look at these programs that are online, and really just be proactive about everything, and staying organized is so important.
Yes, the organization piece is really important. And then another thing that I did with my sons is when you look at a scholarship application, and let's say the deadline is November 30th. Now, you need to, if you need a letter from your guidance counselor, then you need to make your deadline November 15th, because you need to get it to your guidance counselor in enough time for them to get your letters out there. Because when these scholarships say postmarked by whatever date, they mean postmarked or received by whatever date. So you need to make your deadline 2 or 3 weeks earlier. If you tend to be a person who procrastinates or whatever, then you need to give yourself an earlier deadline, which forces you to have to be on time, because you don't want to miss out on a scholarship because your guidance counselor was, you know, too busy to send out the letter. And a lot of the counselors, sometimes if you're a student who they've been writing letters for frequently, they kind of already have a letter there anyway. So it's just a matter of them changing the heading, etc. But you need to give them that time, because you're not their only student. They've got got at least 100, sometimes maybe 200 to 300 other students. So you have to give them that lead time. Okay, and some things we want to say that we want to remember, college visits. Another point that I always say is important when looking at schools is asking if the school can meet 100% of your needs. So that means is that once you've done the financial aid forms, if your out of pocket can only be say $15,000 and a school costs 50, then you need to make sure that school can give you a package worth 35,000, and that's for the student. We're not talking including the Parent Plus loan. Again, we're saying that scholarships and grants can always transfer. Check your emails, don't miss deadlines. Some schools are tuition free. Financial aid packages are negotiable. So if you're, and we don't, and sometimes I've learned not to say my number one and my number two school, but say you've got two schools that really interest you, but you prefer to go to one. So let's say you get into Harvard and Princeton, but you really, really want to go to Harvard, but Princeton gives you a better package. Take that Princeton letter, send it to Harvard, and more than likely Harvard will match it or do better. So that way you're able to get your dream and do what you need to do at the school you want to with the least amount of money coming out of your family's pockets. Ladies, any comments on this additional?
You have a couple of questions in the chat. I just want to read one. It says, when should students apply for scholarships?
Well, as Khaliyah said, as a senior, you can start, and some of the websites that I send out year round. So you can start as a senior. Some of them sometimes even start as early as junior year. So it's a matter of looking at if you're on Parent Matterz email distribution list, they're always sending out scholarship information. So always read what the criteria are. If it applies to you, then fill it out. So you can start as early as senior year. And like I said, even junior year, sometimes there are scholarships that are offering monies for that grade, and the monies can just sit until you're ready to use them for college.
Thank you for that, Dr. Ketsia. Also, we have Marva is raising her hand. Marva, if you could unmute yourself and ask your question, that'd be fine. If you can see where to do that, Marva. No?
I just while we're waiting for Marvin, I just want to piggyback on what Ketsia said about the question we had about when should students apply. So I put in the chat that we ran a pilot program this summer, this spring throughout the summer with high school juniors going into their senior year, and creating those spreadsheets early, like we did in May. It was really imperative. So it was first about their college list, and then we included another tab for scholarships, because some of them you can start applying in junior year, but it's really important to know what you're going to need, because what they were able to do was identify what teachers they were going to ask or community members to write their college essays. So I gave them a basic spreadsheet, and I'm so impressed with these students. They made them extremely elaborate, and it's something that is really important to do as early as possible. So if you have students who are underclassmen, you can start that even in your freshman year. Just start adding to this stuff, because knowing what you're going to need is really important, you know.
No, definitely. And then another thing about the scholarships also is that sometimes the checks are written out to the students. So that's funding that can come to you. When the scholarships write the check out to the school, what that may do is it may decrease the amount in loans that you have to take out. I know my younger son, when he went to Cornell, his first year, our out of pocket would have been $11,000. He was awarded $8,000 in scholarships between the local ones. So our out of pocket would have been about like $3,000 to $4,000. And then it was a little bit more because of, fees, things like that. And so one of the scholars, so I would say of the 8,000, 7,000 of it were written in checks to him. The other $1,000 check was written to the school. So what that did was that decreased the amount in loans that he took out from his financial aid package. So that's another way that that you're able to get funding for school, and how the scholarships are, how the scholarship applications work.
One other thing that I'll add, that's a little bit of a deviation, but also consider if there's scholarships at the jobs where you work and if they're able to be provided to your children. So that's how I got one of my scholarships through my dad's job. Their union had a scholarship. I applied, I was given that scholarship, and I believe the check was made out directly to me. So I could decide how I wanted to allocate that money, if I wanted it to go straight to tuition or to help with my moving expenses to get down to college. So there's so many sources of getting scholarships. So don't forget to also start like local where you work, maybe even where like your friends work or family work, and just see if they have if they have scholarship opportunities through their jobs.
And then also the credit unions as well also have scholarships. Like pretty much almost every company you could think of, Best Buy used to have a scholarship. So it's a matter of going onto their website. Sometimes it may not be as easy to find the information, but pretty much everything, like Khaliyah said, jobs have scholarships. So students don't sleep on these opportunities, because that's additional funding, and 1,000 here, 500 here, start to accumulate and help decrease your out of pocket.
I have a couple of questions. I think some people may be having a problem trying to unmute, so I'm going to read the questions here, Dr. Sadler. Marva's question: my daughter's in the 7th grade. What volunteer organizations should she look into to develop student resume for scholarships in universities?
Well, I'll start on that, and I know Rhona can add some more information. So sometimes, like if you're a Girl Scout, students who make it up to senior year or up to I think it's a junior Scout and beyond that, that's one thing to do. And in our area, we have different organizations that will give you volunteer hours. For instance, we've got NAG in TNEC. Sometimes if you're with the Urban League. So different organizations will allow you opportunities to have that volunteer information or that community service, which is important. Or your church as well. One lady, I know her daughter, they're Catholic, and her daughter has been helping teach the CCD courses with the younger students. So it's, again, what interests you. And you don't want to just jam pack your resume with a lot of things. Schools want to see a few quality things that you've spent a lot of time than to see you've jumped around and have like 15 things that you only spent a year or two in. So what interests you, and stay committed to it, because they want to see that you're a student who can manage their academics and their time.
Great. So I just want to say real quick, going back to scholarships, I put in the chat, Scholly.org is a great app and the organization that shares scholarships based on your demographics. So definitely consider them, as well as registering with College Cafe, Dr. Ketsia's organization, and Parent Matterz, because we both share scholarships weekly, if not daily, information. So going back to your question about the volunteer organization, depending on where you live, if you live in Bergen County, New Jersey, then the Volunteer Center of Bergen County definitely has a ton of scholarship opportunity, volunteer opportunities that they can connect you to, depending on your child's age and interest, that kind of stuff. But you definitely want to do that. I'm glad you're even asking that question at this age, because those volunteer hours and there are scholarships just based on volunteer hours. And going back to scholarships, I want to make sure you also look at scholarships that are on a particular school's page. So if it doesn't matter how young you are, if you've already identified some schools that might be of interest to your student, Google that, Google on their page what kind of specific scholarships they have, endowment money for particular things. And then also, if your student has an idea of what they want to study, or a couple of different ideas of what they want to study, Google scholarships for, computer software engineer. And you'll be surprised what's going to come up in the information. It'll be overwhelming, but that's why you have to have these spreadsheets, and you have to, sift through them and see, what is doable and what's not, and look at the deadlines and plan accordingly. So, and you kind of have to, we do something called Solidarity Sundays. And listen, with my kids, when they were going through the college process, and even now, we set aside a certain amount of time every week. And that's really how you have to do it, so you're not overwhelmed. And again, starting as early as possible. This is not something that is definitely a marathon. You have to definitely plan it out well, and ask for help, because there are people out here that can help you through this process. Yeah. So I know Ruby asked a question. Can I read Ruby's question here?
Go right ahead.
How do scholarships work if I want to do my undergraduate abroad? Well, that's a really interesting question, Ruby. It depends. Every scholarship has different requirements. My daughter is also looking to study abroad, so they have different requirements. These are things you have to ask about. And I don't know if you're doing a gap year or studying abroad, but I would definitely look into that. And I would Google scholarships for study abroad. There are a lot of there's a lot of information out here. I would definitely go on Scholly as well. And we can talk offline. Ruby, I know your dad. You can definitely have him reach out to me. So nice seeing you.
Thank you so much. It's just because I've been looking at a lot of international schools, and I don't want to limit myself to just, jumping automatically internationally and not doing like a school in the United States and then doing a study abroad program. Like I really wanted to just jump into going to school like in Scotland or in Italy and whatnot. But I guess I also have another question, and I don't know if I'm like cutting anyone off, but in terms of career-wise, I guess I feel a little lost because I'm aware of my strengths and my weaknesses, and I know about things that interest me, but I like so many different things that it's very difficult to find a singular thing that I could make a career out of. And so I guess I was just kind of wondering, if you have any advice to offer, any insight or anything like that. Thank you.
Wow, Ruby. First of all, I just want to say congratulations on being so multi-talented and multi-passionate. That's a beautiful gift. What grade are you in now?
I'm a junior in high school right now. It's very overwhelming. I'm taking my SAT in less than a month, and so I'm very stressed out with my AP classes and also that. But I do want to make sure I get a head start on in terms of college.
No, that's awesome. Well, the head start is the key, and you're in the right place at the right time and asking the right questions. All those passions that you're interested in, I think as a junior in high school, if one of them is business, I'm just going to give you this. I definitely think you should apply to the Rutgers business program that they have at Rutgers Newark, actually Rutgers Newark and New Brunswick, and we can talk offline about that. That's called the pre-college prep program. You're actually taking a college course on Saturdays, and you get 3 credits. It's a free program, but it'll give you a little bit more of an insight what a college management course is like, and you'll get to be in class with other Rutgers students as well as high school juniors. Both my sons did it. Well, actually 3 of my kids did the program, and it was really powerful. It actually gave my son credit, and he placed out of one of his higher management classes in college. So that was a plus one. He didn't have to pay for that particular course, and it gave him an idea of what type of business or if he was really interested in business. So I think that exposure piece while you're still in high school, take advantage of any and every enrichment program that you can participate in. Here at Fairleigh, they have the engineering program, if that's on your list. And so, we can, talk with your family offline and schedule a time to chat about this, but definitely that exploration is key because you don't want to, the whole goal of Parent Matterz is to help you explore as early as possible. So you're not doing so much costly exploration in college, because that's basically what happens when you're constantly changing your major and moving around. And then maybe looking at colleges that allow you, like I'm a fan of, I have a lot of colleges that I enjoy, but Swarthmore is one of those schools that kind of lets you like free range explore. So that's just something to think about. And then abroad programs, there are colleges like NYU and other schools that allow you to be a student at NYU, but study abroad your entire 4 years. They're different campuses. So that's something to think about as well.
Thank you
so much.
And
Ruby, I just wanted to add in quickly, just because you sound like how I was when I was a junior in high school. You have so many interests, and while it's good to think about like what it is that you want to pursue and what you want to narrow down, like specifically, it might be stricter, let's say if you want to do engineering, because then you want to make sure that you go to an engineering school, or if you want to study medicine to go to med school later on, like that's something you'll want to consider now. But if you really want to take time to explore, there like a lot of schools make you take gen ed courses in your first year before you have to narrow down to anything. So for example, when I was an undergrad at Georgetown, I used my first year to explore different subjects, and before I narrowed down on anything, and I ended up settling with an American Studies and Education degree, but that doesn't limit you either. So I had that degree, and then I worked in policy after I graduated, and now I'm in business school. So don't feel like you're making a decision right now for the rest of your life, but also just be very proactive and think about, what is it that you think you might want to pursue. If it is something like engineering or medicine, you might have to be a little bit more diligent about which schools you apply to and go to. But there's lots of guidance, and I know that Parent Matterz can help offer you guidance, and there's probably I'd be happy to offer you any guidance as well. But so don't feel overwhelmed.
Thank you so much. If possible, if you could drop your emails in the chat, that would be very helpful so I could contact you later on. I guess what's hard for me is because my mom is telling me, okay, well, maybe if you figure out, the income that you want to make and then go from there and then figure out your strengths and things like that, it might be easier, because I don't think that I'm the type of person that would do well with like a 9-to-5 job, because I want a job that allows me to travel all the time. So I guess it's a little more difficult for me, since I want something a little more nuanced and a little less common, I guess.
Yeah. I just want to piggyback on that. I'm glad you shared all this information because it's powerful. Khaliyah, maybe you could share your experience working on Capitol Hill, because I think that, just some of that experiences you had and maybe other internships. I know you also traveled overseas during your college years and with the school or with other programs. And that might be a good information for these young people and parents to hear about.
Yeah, definitely. I can start with my international experience in school. I knew that I really wanted to travel abroad before going to college. I hadn't traveled abroad before, and I wanted that to be part of my educational experience. And so what I ended up doing was applying for a program through my school where I was able to do research in another country, which then I ultimately presented and wrote a report on. But through that, I was able to go to Kenya for about a month with my school, which was a great opportunity. And I stayed involved with those organizations to this day. So that makes a difference. That's made a difference in my life. And I'm happy to have had that opportunity. But in terms of like jobs post college, like I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so what I ended up doing was taking an internship after I graduated. And I interned for an organization, a nonprofit organization, doing fundraising. And I wanted to have that 3-month buffer period before I had to settle on something. And through that internship, I met Senator Cory Booker. And through that interaction, I was able to get my job on Capitol Hill, working for him and working very directly with him in DC. So that just goes to show like opportunities will present themselves as long as you put yourself out there. If I hadn't done that internship, and if I just settled on any regular 9-to-5 job just to have a full-time job after graduating, I wouldn't have met Cory Booker or Senator Booker. And if I hadn't met Senator Booker, then I wouldn't have had that job. So I would just say when opportunities arise, like put yourself out there. You never know which path your life will take. To this day, like I'm still relatively young. I'm only 26. I don't know where my life is going after this. But make sure that you're constantly exposing yourself to opportunities. And when they show up, don't dismiss it as thinking like, maybe it's not for me. If it's something you're really interested in, go for it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Khaliyah. Just say you never know where things are going to take you in life. You just can't lay it out. It never sometimes doesn't look like you think it's going to look like. I just want to throw out, there's a question here in the chat. When using 529 plans, is it better to pay directly to the school, student, or parent? Anybody?
So basically how the 529 plans look is it's monies that are going into accounts. Say it's kind of almost like a 403B. I'm not saying it's the same, but the money is sitting there. And then when it's time for your child to go to college, you can take money from there to help pay for tuition, etc. So monies are initially going to that 529 account, and then the money can be removed by the parent to help pay for the students' schooling fees, tuition, or whichever. So I hope that answers it a little bit. Okay, and then let me see what the last slide said. Okay, so just some additional resources of books that parents can read that help me, what colleges don't tell you and other parents don't want you to know. Very impactful book. I literally read it while my son was at a baseball game, just tidbits on, especially when you're in high school, on things to do. Like for instance, when you get waitlisted. And so things that the student could do to make them look more attractive to get off the wait list. For parents who have students in elementary and middle school, these are three different websites where your child can sign on, and with a better chance, they help if you want your child to have a private school education. NJC's is one, again, which helps the students go to school on Saturdays. It's for middle schoolers, and then they help funnel you into private schools in New Jersey. Prep for Prep is similar, but that's in New York. So if any New Yorkers are in the audience. And then Coverdell is a term that I found out a few months ago, which basically it's like a 529 for elementary and secondary school. So parents put money into there. So if your child is attending a private elementary or secondary school, you can use money to pay for it. And then once they graduate and go on to college, if there's any money left over in that Coverdell account, you can use it to help pay for college as well. Ladies, want to comment on those sites or anything?
No, these are great resources and great programs that I've known young people to take advantage of. So I just wanted to, I know we only have a few minutes left. I just wanted to see if Khaliyah wanted to share anything about any opportunities for high school students, because there might be a lot of high school students that she knows of or is aware of. And then also about what the application process was like to getting into graduate school, because I think you got a fellowship to graduate school, and just so parents can plan long-term.
Yes, I also want to address Abigail's question in the chat about how you can get on schools' radars. A lot of schools will have info sessions, so you can attend an info session. A lot of them are probably being hosted by Zoom right now. And once you go to the info session, you're probably on their mailing list after that. And then they could send you any other updates that may come up, and you could just follow through on those and see if there's anything else that you're interested in. In terms of other experiences for high school students, I just put a quick thing in the chat about high school student opportunities on Capitol Hill. If students are interested in experiencing Capitol Hill, there's an opportunity to be Senate pages, which are basically the people who work on the Senate floor. They run around and pass notes to the different senators, and they do like a summer school where they learn more about policy. So they take a few classes over the summer. And so that's a good opportunity. And in terms of grad school, so yes, I am currently in grad school. I'm getting an MBA, and I got a full tuition scholarship. And so there is money out there for grad school. Part of how I did this was interacting with the school and learning about other scholarship programs based on what I wanted to do. So I knew that I wanted to go into get an MBA. So there's a program, an organization called the Consortium for Graduate Study and Management. I think that's what the acronym is, or we just call it the Consortium. And you can apply to schools that way. And if accepted to one of your top schools, you can get a full ride scholarship. In addition to that, going back to an earlier point, if you apply to a school, you get accepted, you get a certain financial aid package, but the school that you're interested in doesn't have as attractive of a financial aid package, you can negotiate with the school. So that's what I did with some of the other business school programs that I was interested in. They didn't offer me as much money as my current school did. I presented them with the financial package that I got from my current school, and they were able to match that. So I was able to get, I think it was 4 schools that offer me full ride scholarships for graduate study as a result of doing that. So the money's out there, the programs are out there. It's about seeking out those opportunities and really just talking to people and learning more about what is out there and what's available. And I'm also happy to talk with anyone offline about that process as well.
Great.
I'm going to stop the screen share.
Yeah, I think Rhona dropped it in the chat. What is it? CGSM, is that the consortium?
Yes, I dropped the link to the consortium, but I just want to say thank you to Marva for giving that great resource about International Youth Leadership Institute.
Yeah.
Also, so this is great.
Yeah. This has been phenomenal. Does anyone have any other questions? This is just, I mean, I wish I knew this many years ago when I was sending my kids off, and we learn, and it's just a beautiful thing when you can just take what you've learned and pass it on, so we can keep passing it on and passing it on. So the families have this knowledge that so empowers them to do what they need to do for their children, their families. And, it's invaluable, this information. You may not get it in your schools, but you're getting it here. And these people, we have Rhona, we have Ketsia, and we have Khaliyah here today that are sharing this with you and can continue that conversation if needed. So please ask any questions that you may have, put them in the chat or unmute yourself.
I just want to share real quick, based on what you just said, definitely don't rely on the schools for everything. You're in partnership as a parent with the schools. They can't do it all. There's no way they can service all the students. And even if they're mean well, they can't do it all. So know that you're your first child's educator, and you have to be intentional about seeking out resources. And guess what? If you don't have the resources, seek out other folks that can help you, like I did. I was smart enough to get a village of people who knew more than I did and could motivate my kids. Because one of the questions that didn't come up today, but people have asked me, is how did I get my kids to do all the things they did to get the robust resume by the time they graduated high school to get the full or merit scholarships? Well, that was a challenge. So I had to use my mom power, right? I'm the mother, and you're eating my food, you're living in my house, so we're gonna fill out this application. And this is what we pretty much did every Saturday morning, and it was no sweat off of them. And it allowed them to experience and expose themselves and create these robust networks, because those networks are the people who got them scholarships. I mean, my son just about a month ago got a text message from someone that we knew that's now a mentor to his in the community that led him to a scholarship for 10 grand and an internship. So it's just like, you just never know. So you need to put your kids out in these programs, whether they want to do them or not, and let them get exposure and let them build these networks, because these are the people who are going to help them find scholarships, find internships and jobs. Ultimately, this is the pipeline and this is where you start. So definitely do that. And I just want to say thank you, Pat and Rosalind, for this forum, for being here for parents and making sure that information is available, because that's really what it's all about.
Oh, I see a question here. Ladies, somebody has a question here, Michelle. How important are SAT scores? Do you see these requirements going away in the future, and what are ways students can prepare?
I'll chime in on that first. Well, while SAT scores are important, there are a lot of schools who are going test optional, meaning that you don't have to submit your SAT scores, but the rest of your application has to be top notch. Your essay needs to be incredible. Your letters of recommendation need to be incredible. You need to have some community service. And then of course your GPA has to be on top as well. So, you need to look at that. Like they were saying, ladies were saying before, look at your GPA to see which schools would be places you want to apply. Because if you're not going to submit SAT scores, then the rest of your application has to be strong. So you have to prepare in terms of taking the courses we said before, honors, AP, dual enrollment. So definitely those are things you have to do to make your application stronger if you're not looking at submitting the SAT scores.
I just want to say, I am, my kids were not the best test takers. Get the tutoring, I have great tutors. Parent Matterz can connect you to great resources that'll help your kids get the scores that they need to, but start early. It's not too early to start prepping for the SAT and ACT in 9th grade. I know many people who are doing that in 6th, 7th grade and stuff. So I feel like if your child's application shows up without an SAT or an ACT score, and someone else is at equal status and they show up with a strong score, then they're gonna get the position. They're gonna get the scholarship. They're gonna get in the school. So I hear a lot of options out here. I say prepare your kids for the test. And listen, I have one child who had an IEP since 6th grade, and there are services, and he did extremely well on his SATs. He had no barriers in time. So sometimes it's just test anxiety. So that's why you want to start early. You got to find out how your child learns and get them the help that they need to get through these standardized tests. And it's definitely possible. And then on the other hand, if your child just really isn't a good test taker, there are tons of schools out here that don't require SATs. So just, keep your options open.
And then just to piggyback on talking about the IEP, students who have an IEP during high school, when they go off to college, there are offices that provide assistance for students, whether it's a scribe to take notes for you. There are ways to still be successful. Your IEP does not have to end when you leave high school, nor should it limit you as to where you apply, because resources are available.
Yeah. I just love this that Marva put in the chat. I don't know if you saw it, Lace, but we're going to do a t-shirt about this. I think you're going to love this. Marva says, your network is your net worth. I love it. I love it. Your network is your net worth, you know, and we know how powerful it is when community comes together. What can happen, right?
And I'm glad she said that. I just want to say real quick, you know, I tell young people, listen, I've done retail work and I did fast food work, and so have my kids. But you know, when I see a lot of our young people, especially who look like us, in these jobs and have already graduated high school or college and can't find their way, and that's really a lack of preparing and getting those networks in place. The unfortunate thing about working these type of jobs is the people who are around you are generally not going to help get you where you're trying to go. So these internships and these exposure opportunities are usually people who are willing to pour into you and connect you with a mentor that's going to help you get somewhere. So that's why a lot of people push back on me when I suggest interning in high school and in college. But I say, you know, I understand you want to work at whatever job, but you really want to get those networks and get those mentors in as early as possible. And it's gonna change the game for your child. So just consider that.
Yeah.
And my experience with that, my older son, even though he did not go to an HBCU, he got a scholarship he was in an internship program through the United Negro College Fund, working at United Water up here in the summers. I think he was making like $14,000 an hour during college, and they gave him a $5,000 scholarship to school for his last 2 years. So again, the internships have an impact financially. So they definitely are worth doing. Absolutely.
Yeah. There are people graduating from really big, prestigious, fancy schools with no jobs, and they hadn't had internships. And others from other schools that have had internships and maybe not such a big, prestigious school and who are landing jobs. Right. So I know internships really, really make a huge difference, particularly in today's market.
When I talk to employers, that's where their pool is coming from. So understand that. And I've talked to a lot of employers across the board and all kinds of careers, and that's what they're looking for, the folks who were in their pipeline. And so the key is starting in high school, getting your kids in some of these pipelines.
In Teaneck High School, is there internships still available for seniors during the last semester?
The senior service program?
Yeah.
It is, they have that option, students can, as far as I know. Mm-hmm.
So if they have that, I would suggest people try to take advantage of that as well. That's one way to do things. And in other schools, in Bergen and the academies, they have externship programs, which are good as well. I've had some students who have gotten jobs after doing internships. After they've graduated, they stay on after college, and then after graduation from college, they've gotten jobs.
And sometimes you have to create your own. So that's why I say you have to create that network and that village around your kids. So if your kid has a passion for something, you have to then reach into your network or other people around you and say, hey, do you know anyone? Like Pat and I were talking about the fashion industry. So then you connect your kids to those people who are going to help your kids get that, you know, exposure. Sometimes it's just a conversation, you know, or a lunch and that kind of stuff. But and Ruby, just speaking to your point of having a lot of different passions and interests, you need to have a lot of conversations with a lot of different people who are doing what you possibly want to do as young as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else want to share anything or have any other questions? This has been really a fabulous, fabulous forum. No?
Ruby asked a question about the recommendation letter. I know Khaliyah responded. You know, Ruby, I'm glad you're asking that now. You need to identify those teachers now. If you're a freshman, if you have a freshman or a sophomore in high school, they need to start forming a bond with a teacher or teachers now, or in community leaders. Being involved in community programs like in Teaneck and other probably towns have it, the Youth Advisory Board. Marva was talking about volunteer opportunities. Khaliyah, were you a part of that? And that's huge. Yeah. So talk about that. the Youth Advisory Board is just a great organization for young people in middle school and high school to be involved in their town's politics, right? And how that looks to someone on paper. Remember, when your application gets to a college or to a scholarship committee, all they see is what's on paper. So you need to make that paper robust and as amazing as possible. Algorithms, right? You know, certain things, like my kids did programs at Google. They did a week-long program maybe at Google or whomever, things that will pop, right? So your applications will get noticed.
Yeah. Well, I would like to thank all of our presenters today, Dr. Ketsia Sadler, Rhona Vega, Khaliyah Legette, so much for this powerful forum today. And I think our families have walked away with some invaluable knowledge, and it's going to empower them, you know, to take it to the next level, to put those dreams into reality. Absolutely. Thank you all. Thank you everyone for coming. Everyone on Facebook, we are on Facebook Live. We've been streaming there. So it's all good. And thank you, everyone. And thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Khaliyah, can you guys stay on for a minute so we can take a photo before we end?
Sure.
Thank you. This was
I'm
awesome.
gonna
Thank you,
stop.
Khaliyah. You were such an added phenomenal bonus.